Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Lamastaftas Baba Kama Daf Ayin Ches. We are going to begin on Ayin Ches Amud Aleph, about 8 lines from the top. El Had Yomi Rava. So we were learning in yesterday's daf with the help of Rabbi Gibber's test from some 30 years ago. He asked, "Are you chayiv dalad v'hei if you shechter sold kilayim?" In other words, an animal which came from a forbidden mixture, and the answer was yes. So we had a reboy in the psukim of O, and when it came to kilayim, are you allowed to use that animal as a carbon? So the answer is no, you're not able to. And as we're going to see in a second, whether you can be poide peter chamor onto kilayim, that we're going to end up seeing in a moment what the answer is. Okay. So El Hadyam Rabba Zeban Av Kol Makam Shnemer Se. Anytime it mentions the word Se sheep, Eno El Haitzias a Kilayim. It's coming to exclude Kilayim. So if that's the case, Lamai Hilchasa. What is that coming to tell us? Il Kadashim. If it's referring to the din of Kodshim, says Rashi Lamemra the Apostle carbon, that you're not allowed to bring them as a carbon. We learned out the word short okesev is pratli kilayim. So we ended up saying, because it's not shaykh for a short okesev to breed, so therefore the O is coming to me, ma'ai is to exclude. As we said, everyone holds that such a carbon is not acceptable. So il meiser, let's say it's referring to the din of meiser, and Rashi says meiser behema. Says Rashi, Yachav deluksiv be se. It doesn't actually say the word se over there. El tsoin kaimer. It says the word tsoin. Nonetheless, tachas yelov mikodshin. We nonetheless learn out of Gzer Shava tachas that just like by kadashim the din is that you cannot bring it as a carbon, so too you cannot use this regarding meiser the din of meiser behema. There's no din meiser behema on kilayim. Il b'chor. How about when it comes to an animal, a firstborn animal? So havar yolav mamaiser. We'll learn out Gzer Shava. The pasuk says vavar kol peter rechem LaHashem, and it also says v'chol asher yavor tachas hashavet. So therefore, we make this connection between meiser behema and the din of b'chor. Therefore, there's no din, there's no chiyuv. Inami nidme, or you can say nidme. So as we said before, nidma is it appears like another animal. It doesn't look like its mother or father animal. So inami nidma amrit lo. Nidma, you would say no. Dechsev ach b'chor shor ashe hu shor u'b'chor shor. It has to be that it is a shor and its b'chor is a shor, namely not a nidma. Kilayim boy. So kilayim boy. So if we already have a pasuk that tells you that nidma doesn't work, even though it does come from these animals, so kilayim, which is a forbidden mixture altogether, certainly there should be no chiyuv of b'chor. So el vakiyat mar derabla inyan peter chamor, as we said in Rabbi Gibber's questions, when it comes to a peter chamor. Now by peter chamor it also says the word seh, and we're going to see that Rav is telling us that ein poidin b'kilayim. You cannot redeem peter chamor onto kilayim. Kidetnan. Ein poidin lo be'egel. Cannot redeem it onto a calf, v'lo b'chaya, or not a wild animal like Rashi says it's tzvi v'ayil, a deer or a ram. Voy b'shchuta, and not with an animal that was shechted. Now, even was a seh, but it has to be a living sheep. It can't be one which is shechted, because if it's shechted, it's not considered a seh anymore. It's like considered like a carcass. Voy b'treifa also, can't use a seh if it's a treifa. And then it says over here, v'lo b'kilayim. It says beferish that kilayim will not work. And Rashi explains that's mishnei mini behemois. If it's the product of two different animals, so then that's, as we said, that's kilayim. And therefore, because of that, there's no din of you can't be paida a petach hamor onto it. V'lo koi, and not on a koi, which Rashi just says mibehema b'chaya. It's an animal in which has certain attributes of domesticated and non-domesticated. Some translate it as a water buffalo. There's different ways that's translated. We usually machmer when it comes to a koi. We saw at the beginning of Masechtas Kedushin, as well as other places. Rabbi Elazar demater b'kilayim. Rabbi Elazar actually does mater kilayim ditnan. Rabbi Elazar mater b'kilayim emnei shehuseh. So actually, I got this question right on Rabbi Giver's test. The question is, what is the din by kilayim by petach hamor? It's actually a machlokas. So it's true, it's a machlokas. Because according to the Shita Rabbi Elazar, he does mater kilayim. So lamai hilchasa, so according to him, what is the halachas? How amar lach Rabbi Elazar, kiyimar de Rava latami shenolim min atahar v'ibru min atame. So he says that it's coming to tell us a situation where you have a tameh animal that is born from a tahar animal. V'iburoi min atame. So what is this case? Says Rashi, para. So you have a cow. Shiyol sus, v'aviv sus. So its father was a horse. O Rachel shiyol chazir. Or you have this Rachel, like sheep, that gave birth to a pig. V'aviv chazir, and the father is a pig. So either the father is a horse or the father is a pig, which means that the father is tameh, a tameh animal, de'asmachil. So this product, this animal, you are not allowed to eat. Obviously, you can't eat a horse, you can't eat a chazir, but since the father is that, even though this animal, which is like a mixture, since its father is tameh, so therefore, you cannot eat it. Shor se ksavim. Kivan dechsiv se, over there it says se, pratli kalayim can be kiyagabhu. So if you have an animal, even if it's latame, shenoiled min a tahar, was given birth from a tahar mother, if you will, the ibudoi min hatame, but it got pregnant from a tame male animal, right? Which means the man, not the man, so we're talking about animals, the male animal was tame, like a pig or a horse, even though the mother was a tahar animal, so the product of that that relationship, if you will, is going to produce kilayim, which is you're not allowed to eat it. To look Rabbi Yeshua, misay ksavim v'seizim nafkele. He already learned it out from these psukim. Ashe aviv keves v'imo kivsa. So he already learns out this din, and therefore you don't need. He wouldn't say that's coming to the hilchasa is coming to tell you this din. Okay. Utahara mitameya mim abra. So this is a question. What exactly are we talking about? If you have a non-kosher animal, which was a male animal, and it breeds with a kosher animal, it's not going to be able to give birth. The answer is in. Yes, there are some times that actually could take place. It says Rashi, how could that work? You can't find mixed breeds of a kosher to a non-kosher animal. They just physically are not capable of producing offspring. So the Gemara says that's not true, even though the Gemara in Bukhara seems to disagree with this. The Kamelon, because we hold as we continue Ayin Chesed Beis, and this is how we can find the situation. The Iaber Mikolot, that it gave birth from an animal which its hooves were uncloven. Reb Shimon, like Reb Shimon, says Rashi, kolot persisav, kalutois. Again, its hooves are uncloven. The noilim in a tahar. Reb Shimon karle tame. So even though it's actually a kosher species, it's not talking about a pig, right? As Rashi initially said, it's talking about it's really a kosher animal, but because for whatever reason it has this birth defect, if you will, in which its hooves are uncloven, so therefore it's considered to be tameh. This time b'chayr, so Rashi says Rav Shimon Omer gamal shnei pa'amim. Regarding the non-kosher animal of a camel, it says it twice. Echad gamal hanoam and a gamala. A camel is born from a female camel. a para. He gives birth from a cow, right? So again, it has to do with it's coming from a kosher species. So Lafi Rav Shimon, we mean that this non-kosher animal is really a kosher species, but since it is a kolut, it is likened to a non-kosher animal, and that animal bred with another animal. Since this kolut only has one siman, so it's not kosher. Their offspring also are not kosher. That's what it's come to tell you. Okay. If a person makes a declaration, says, I'm accepting upon myself the neder to bring an oila, v'hifresh shor, and he is mafresh an ox, and someone came and stole it, mi pater ganav nashi b'keves, l'rabanan b'oil sa'ofer Rebbe Lezer ben Azariah. So can the ganav, since he's just saying he's being makar of an oila, so could he instead have like a sheep or a lamb instead? Because Rashi points out, b'keves, the armele oila kamachayeves. He's being machayim himself a carbon. The oila mashlim menaloch. I'm paying you back an oila. Well, if Santa sumidi out losing out, the hayotzima atoyedei nidrach. Because by bringing this other animal, you'll fulfill your obligation. It would be better for me as the ganav because I'll have to pay you less. So, or maybe even according to the shita of Rebbe Lezer ben Azariah, that he says that an also oaf would also be sufficient. Ditnan harilai oyla yavi keves. Rebbe Lezer ben Azariah omer yavi toro ben yaina dove or turtle dove. So my me amrin do we say shame oyla kabul ilui. He was only calling himself the shame carbon, and therefore because of that he's still bringing an oyla. May not be a shore, but it's still carbon. O dilma matzir no mitzvah min a mufchor be'in lameved. I wanted to do the mitzvah in the most beautiful way, and therefore I really wanted a more expensive, valuable animal. So therefore you have to return that. Basa de boy hadar pash to answer the question, hadar pashat. Gana padaras mekevs or rabbanim rabbalos oif rabbalos ben Taka. He could do such a thing. Rabbi Yika Masti Labhead, he says explicitly that I'm Rabbi Harlai oil of a person says I'm bringing an oil over here for sure. So once he says Harlai oil, he just makam still to bring an oil, but he could have brought any of these other animals, so he didn't have to be offers the shore. So if someone stole that shore, question 7. Harlai oil here for sure. Mahdin. So Rabbanan Pater Mikol V'Koil says, according to the Rabbanan, you're Pater completely. You're Pater completely. We'll have to look in this Rashi. Rav Shimon the Davar Hagarma Maman Kamaman Dami Meishavo Keves V'Daya, just this lamb. Or Fil Torah B'nei Yoina or Belazim Azari. So look at this Rashi. So Rashi is gonna put the Ratzma, the Tashum the Baal Machayev, a Hari Atzma Yedei Nidroi. I've said the hektish miftan base ish ksev lo hektish. Believe Rav Shimon nakat. This is very important. This is only the shita of Rav Shimon, says Rashi. The Omer kachim shechab yachrus and chayev. That when it comes to karbanos, in which there's a chiv acharayis, so because now I have to bring a new animal if it gets stolen, so therefore you're chayev dal dehay, you're chayev for gneva. And that's actually plutay the rabban of Rebbe Lezer v'tamayu b'perik baser the menachos. Doesn't explain it here. We have to wait till menachos in a couple of years. But in the meanwhile, we do see, in fact, it is a machlokas. Okay, let's see if there's another question over here. Nothing on TA yet. TB. Okay, not that either. Okay. Let's see if maybe Rabbi Gibber has one more question over here for us. Let's see. Maybe all the way on the bottom. Ha'emer Haralai oila ezid davar yavi oilasai. You don't need to bring anything to bring a shore. You can even bring a kesev, right? You can even bring a keves, I should say, according to the Rabbanan, or this other behema lefi one mandirma. It's not correct. Okay, all right, I tried. What's there over here? Eze din lomedes hagemara maha bepar matama tumas oichlin hoya v'hoisel shasa kaisher kol oimid lifters kapodei dami. That is correct. Okay. That was the end of that test. So let's move on to the next Mishnah. Says the Masnisin, Machroi chutz me'echad mimeya shaboy. Let's say you're dealing with a case of a ganav, so he already stole it, and then he sells this item, but he only sells part of it. He says everything except for 1/100th. So he still retains some level of ownership. O shahaisaloi loy bashutvus. Now let's say there's a partnership, says Rashi, kaidim shiganvoi. Before it was stolen, lo karinin be'umachroi kulo be'sura. So because there was partnership, so we don't say that the whole thing was be'isser. Okay. So again, for example, the Ganav owned part of it, so he was a partial owner to begin with. So therefore, he's not going to be chayiv because it has to be dafka. Again, Rashi says dafka umachloi kuloi, and it was not machar kul b'yisura. Hashoich, back in the Mishnah, hashoichet yishach the animal v'nis abula biyadai, and it becomes a nevela. So it's not roy for achila. Or, for that matter, hanoicher, a person, Rashi says, kaira, you like rip it up all the way until its heart. Hama'aker, or a person, ma'aker says Rashi, oiker simanim, you rip out its internal organs. Misham tashim mikevin, misham tashim rava chamisha. So all these different situations, since it's not considered to be a shchita because you're not shechting it, so therefore, you're not going to be chayav dal b'hei. It has to be v'tavchay, the exact language of the pasuk. Says the Gemara, "Ma'echutz mechem memei shaboy." What does it mean? 1 of 100. So zamachlokas. Omer Rav chutz medavar hanitar imo b'shchita. It's excluding something which is mutter with a shchita. Says Rashi, kagay mibsarai. He says, I want to own some of the meat. Aval says Rashi, shiardes oira v'karneha v'gizoiseha. If let's say you left over, let's say it's horns or shearings, I'm going to keep some of its shearings, so you could have sheared it without the shechita anyway. So therefore, in that situation, that's still considered to be mechir to be chayiv dalad v'hei. B'levi omer chutz migizoy seha davka, it's shearings, not anything else. V'chein tanu amastisa chutz migizoy seha. So meisavei marcha chutz miyada, if you sold it except for its hand, chutz mirag except for its foot, chutz mikarin its horn, chutz migizoseha its shearings, in a mishal tashimar b'chamisha. That's not a mechira. Therefore, you have to pay. You don't pay dal v'hei. Rabbi Omer davar hama'ake b'shchita. It's something which is ma'ake the shchita. Says Rashi, davar she'im nitel himenu. Nasas bo neveil mechayim. If you take it away, it'll become a neveil while it's alive. For example, if you were to remove the veshet or the kana, the esophagus or the trachea, so in that situation, it's going to be a treifa immediately. So therefore, if you would remove the esophagus, even though you have to cut off both simanim anyway, so if it doesn't exist, it's a whole other matter. But in that situation, the din is that you're not going to pay arba b'chamisha. However, back in the Gemara again, says Rashi, if let's say if you own its hand or foot, min ha'arkuva lamata, from the bottom low, the time to come on. So if let's say, of course, it's Israel Menachai, but technically, if this would be severed, the animal could still live. It wouldn't be ma'akid the shchita, it wouldn't make it into a treifa if you cut a certain part up and not above the arkuva of like the knee. So that you would be chayiv dal v'hei only if it's a davar hama'akid b'shchita. Shimon ben Elazar Omer, another shita, chutz mikarna, if you say, I want to keep the horns, in mishlam tam shomem v'chamisha. We'll see why. What horn? You can remove the horn, the animal's still alive. Chutz migizoy seha mishlam tam shomem v'chamisha. If it's the shearings only, so you still have to pay dal v'hei, because certainly you can just shear it off, and that's still, everything else is, he still owes the whole animal. Now, Bishlam Levi Ketanakama. I can understand the Shita of Levi, who said, Chutz migizoy seha. So that's similar to this statement of the Tanakama over here. And he says, chutz miyada, chutz miragel, chutz mikarna, chutz migizoiseha, right? So he mentions a lot of these things which are potentially mutter with the shechita, like the meat, the hand, the foot. Fine. Avol Rav, come on, according to Rav, who says chutz medavar haniter imo b'shechita, so which again we said that's referring to, for example, the meat, right? But if let's say we're dealing with the horn or the skin, the hide, or the shearings, that doesn't count. It's not like that's not included in it being like left over. So who is he hold like? So Amir Rav the Amir Ki Haitan, he holds like this. The sign of Shimon Melezo Amir Marcha Chutz Miyada V'Chutz Meragla and Misham Tashim V'Chamisha, because all these things are like connected to the davar haniter imo b'shchita, the meat, and Misham Tashim V'Chamisha, because he left over. Chutz mikarn v'chutz migzoseh misham tashmei v'chamisha. Okay, so there is a shita like him. So b'may kimefli, what exactly is this machlokus? How do we understand all these different opinions? So Tanakama savar utafachlei kul b'inan. You have to, when it comes to shechting, the whole shechting, you have to shecht the whole animal. Umachar kul b'inan. And so too, when you sell it, because we're comparing tficha and mechira, like we saw in yesterday's daf, so therefore it has to be a complete sale. And therefore, if there's anything lacking, so then it's not considered to be mechira to the extent that you don't pay dal v'hei. All right, Rabbi savar utavacho mideh havi b'tficha. That since this is tavchai, it's something connected to the shechita. Fuki mideh delay havi b'tficha. Something which is not connected to the tficha is not included in this. Umachor dumid tficha. And the fact that this is machor, it's the same thing as tficha, as we said, they're right next to each other. So therefore, the same din. Only time there's you will say that you're not chayav dal v'hei if it's immediately dahavi b'tficha. Rav Shimon ben Eliezer savar karna, when it comes to the horn, lamigza, it doesn't normally get cut off. Lamigza kaima, its purpose of a horn, it doesn't get cut off. So havi shiur. So therefore, that is like you own part of it, and therefore you won't pay dal v'hei. The animal sham tashim v'chamisha. However, gizi zoiseha the lemegas kaimi loy havi shir misham tashim v'chamisha. However, when it comes to wool, it's sheared off normally. A horn is not taken off normally under normal circumstances. An animal is constantly being sheared. So the fact that you say that you're going to own the shearings, you'll still have to pay dal v'hei because basically the whole animal is sold. The Idach Tandad Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer Savar. The other one says Yadav Raglav. When it comes to the hand and the foot, the tzrich tficha, that it's connected and required for the shechting to be able to eat its meat. Havi shir. Therefore, if you say I want to own, you can buy everything, but I'm going to own one of its legs, so that you're not going to be chayav dal v'hei. Therefore, lo misham tashim v'chamisha. Karneha v'gizoiseha lo tzrich tficha lo havi shir. However, when it comes to shearings and the horn, it's not connected to the tficha, because you could disconnect the horn, you could shear, even though the animal is not shechted. So therefore, the fact that you say that I want to keep the horn, I want to keep the shearings, that you'll still be chayav dal v'hei. So kasher Rav Shimon ben Eliezer, Rav Shimon ben Eliezer, straight tanaim, leave it Rav Shimon ben Eliezer. There's two tanaim as to what he said. Tanurman. Hagoynev hakitas. If a person steals an amputated animal, so you the animal is not whole. That's a chigeres, or an animal that is lame. That's a suma, or an animal that is blind. Behemas hashutvin, or you steal an animal that belongs to partners, chayiv. However, vishutvin, if the ganav himself is one of the partners, so he already had partial ownership, he owned half of it. So him stealing it, he's stealing half of it. Right? Shiganvu paturin. In that situation, he will be patur. Okay. Bosanya, but we learn elsewhere, Shutvin Shiganvu, that if you have a ganav as a partner and he steals chayavin, he does have to pay. So Amar Rav Nachman Kasha, kan b'shutav shiganav mechavero, kan b'chutav shiganav mi alma. Says Rashi, if the partner stole from his friend, he's patur from dal v'hei. I feel mechel chavero the lekut tfacha kul b'yisurai, because he was already a partial owner. And therefore, if he stole that which he really had a connection to, and then he shechted, he's not going to be chayav dalad v'hei, because it's only when it's tefachli kulbi surah. But since he owned half of it, so he's not going to be chayav dalad v'hei. And therefore, that's why you'll be pater. However, if a ganav would steal from some other random animal, from someone else's animal, then certainly he would have to pay dalad v'hei. You would think in a situation where a person who was a ganav and he stole it from his friend, the shutvin shiganvu and shutvin that stole hayu chayavin, you would think that they're chayav dalad v'hei. Talmud lemer utvachu kul be'in v'leika. So we see really it's the same din that there's no chayav dalad v'hei. Galom Rav Nachman lo kasha kan b'shutav shetavach l'das chaveroi kan b'shutav shetavach shelo l'das chaveroi. So what does it mean with the das? Says Rashi, shutav shetavach shelo l'das chaveroi pater. It was without your friend's consent, your pater deleiku tvacha kul b'chiyuva, because there was not a situation where you're chayiv for shechting the whole thing. V'havli kitoyveach u'moicher acher hagan of the pater. Okay. Boy, Rav Yirmiyah, machar chutz mishloishim yoim. You say I'm going to sell this to you, except for 30 days, or chutz mimalachta. I'm able to do some type of work with it. If I want, I'm able to do something with it. Chutz mi ubara mahu, excluding its fetus. I want to own the fetus. So what's the din? So lima daman diamar uber yerachimahu lo tiboylach dar shirba. If you hold that an uber is yerach imoi, which means that it has a this is actually machlokas in Tamura. So if you hold that this uber is like a guest, but it's like connected, so then everyone will say that's a shiur. That's like your an exclusion. So you won't be chayav dalad v'hei because uber yerach imoi. So it's almost like it's an extension of the mother. And therefore, it's like you own part of this animal, even though it's really a fetus. But if you hold uber zerach imoi, who it's like the thigh, if you will, of the mother, so then you're certainly going to be pater from dalad v'hei, because that's left over. Kiti boil chalib the mandi armor the uber lav yerach imohu. That really it's really a disconnected animal. So do we say the kivan the mechuber ba havishir, but it is attached, still connected to the mother, so that is a shiur. No dema kivan de la mifrash minakoi, because this animal this fetus will eventually, when she gives birth, will be separated. Lo havishir, and therefore you'll still be chayav dalad v'hei for selling the mother itself. So ikad diamri, some say kivan de lav yerach imohu, since this fetus is disconnected as a separate entity, lo havishir. It's not considered to be a shiur. Or dilma kivan detzarch leishturye b'hada b'shchita, that this animal now can become mutter through a din ben pakua if you shech the mother. Command the shiur b'gufa dami teku. Question. We're gonna stop there. Question 8. Machar chutz ma'uber ma hadin. So l'mandi amar uber yerach imo, that it's like part of the mother. Then have a shiur, then that's certainly a shiur in your pater from dalad v'hei. One who says that uber is lav yerach imo, that is an